So we have been having moderately rotten weather in New York.
And a lot of rain, right?
We had a lot of rain. We had a
Yeah.
lot of cold and wind.
Yeah,
You really fight with. And you say, if it weren't for the wind, this wouldn't be bad, but
yeah. Yeah, I'm not a fan of wind. Makes me tired.
I got a text from Catherine saying that my voice is echoing. Is that
It's
still the
okay
case?
now. It's fine now.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, I can put it in the bag. It'll be fine. I'm gonna take your backup hard drive just in case they want to make sure there's nothing on that. All right, I'm gonna pee first.
So,
'Cause I'm a little peer.
Alicia, I have a question for you before we start. Since you won't be here for the question answer part of the evening, would it be okay if when you finish and leave, if people have questions, they can put them in the chat and then I can send some to you?
or, you know, I could read and then answer questions right after that.
Is Ganilla or Irene here? I want to check with them and make sure that works.
Whatever is convenient for everybody, and with my apologies in advance for
Mm,
having to cut out.
okay.
I just fed my husband some gloppy hospital dinner.
Oh. Yeah, I think you're excused. Yeah, I don't see why we can't spend a couple of minutes so people can ask you questions directly.
If it's okay with everybody.
Sure is okay with me.
Babette's iPad. Hi, Babette. Can't see you.
I know something happened. I don't know what happened.
All this technology is designed to make our life easier.
Yes, just keep saying that to yourself.
I say it every day. While we are working to replace ourselves as a species, bit by bit,
Yes.
bite by bite, bit by bit.
Yeah. It's so strange. Hmm.
Hello, here is our rabbi. Good
I
evening.
made it. So
Yay.
good to see everyone. If you look out the window there, you'll see the what is that? The 190.
Yeah.
Hi, Andy. Okay, can I see the traffic going right behind your head?
Yeah, it's pretty clear. I'm at 1 Seneca right now.
Oh. I haven't been in that building yet. I want to get in.
Oh, it's beautiful. We have a great event here. I can't stay too long because we're in the middle of it here.
What is the great event?
It's the Community Healing Awards from the National Federation of Just Communities.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
There is a National Federation of Just Communities.
Yes, it's a local organization that works to promote diversity and equity in our community.
What about immortality?
No, I don't know. You'd have to come to synagogue for that. I see that we're on the screen there.
Yes, we are.
Oh,
We
got
have
a
some
nice
people
picture.
from Sonoma County on too, Alicia.
Okay,
That
hi.
Oh, Catherine's
may have
on
been-
Zoom too.
See?
you're reading ages ago there.
Catherine, I'm so glad I'm not the only organizer that's on Zoom. Hey, Ganilla.
Oh, Ganilla, can you hear me?
Yes.
After Alicia reads, she'd like to take just, 2 or 3 questions after she reads before we introduce the next person, if that's all right.
It's fine. That's-
Great.
Hi, Ganilla. We're almost shoulder to shoulder on my screen.
Oh.
Very good, very good. Before we get started, that means Julia must mute everybody, I would think.
Except me, maybe. Oh,
And who is the speaker, the first speaker? That I won't mute the first speaker.
Well, I will say a few words, then Rabbi will share a poem if he's, there you are. And then I will hand it over to my guest host, Catherine Hastings, who will introduce the first speaker, the first featured reader, I should say. So, yeah, I just wanted to thank you and welcome you all in person or on Zoom. And tonight we welcome 2 readers who are most powerful and illustrious. Featured readers, Alicia Ostriker and Kim Chin-Kay. I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your name, but I hope I did. People mispronounce my name too, so I try always to. As always, we remain faithful and grateful to Congregation Shir Shalom for hosting the Buffalo Corner. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Rabbi Alex. And now, Rabbi, if you are ready, would you share with us a poem or 2?
Sure. I'm going to take you to Israel. I have 2 poems that are based in the Dead Sea. I had a chance to go into the Dead Sea with a bunch of civic leaders from Buffalo. So this one is called Dead Sea Salt. We all step in tentative. The waters shimmer. Come on, it's warm. The Jordanian hills thin as a mirage. We have been through so much. Let's go relax. Just lean back. Your feet will float up on their own, spreading mud across bald heads. The laughter is contagious. This is heaven. And then on our bus ride back, it's called We Are Family. Each of us carries our own struggles into the Dead Sea, then out. Washing the salt off in the shower, it still stings. The truth is we just met, but on the bus ride back to Jerusalem, we sing with the sisters' sledge. The bus rocks back and forth to the beat, scooting back,
Doing a broadcast.
scooting past an irate driver into the tunnel.
Laureate of New York State. And I have been asked to do a poetry reading for this group in Buffalo by Zoom.
Hold on, I think you're still on mute, Alicia. Just put it on mute for a second. The bus rocks back and forth to the beat, scooting past an irate driver into the tunnel. Our driver, Nessie, flashes the lights, our hands up in the air, everyone singing. What could be bad? So have a great meeting. I got to go back to my award ceremony over here, but just enjoying. I'll be looking forward to listening to it afterwards. Take care, everyone.
I think I'm on. Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, so on July 14th of 2012, one of the most powerful readings took place at my old reading series, Word Temple Poetry Series in Sonoma County, California. And this is when Alicia Ostriker read from what was then her new collection, The Book of Life, Selected Jewish Poems 1973 to 2011. And here we are, almost 11 years later, and she has authored 17 books of poetry, including The Volcano and After, selected in New Poems 2002 to 2019, and The Imaginary Lover, which won the William Carlos Williams Award. Twice the winner of the National Jewish Book Award, she is also the author of 9 books of scholarship and literary criticism, including the classic Stealing the Language, The Emergence of Women's Poetry in America. Her work has been translated into numerous languages, including Hebrew and Arabic. So in my introduction all those years ago, I pointed out that even though her Book of 70 won the National Jewish Book Award, and even though one collection was titled The Book of Life, Selected Jewish Poems 1979 to 2011, you neither have to be Jewish nor even a believer in God to appreciate the full power of her work. Whether you relate most strongly to the Holocaust or to some other human tragedy, and God knows we have enough, Ostriker's own revelations, either on the ability of her fellow human beings to act out their most cruel and destructive sicknesses, or come forth heroically to raise our higher meaning on this planet. She offers both terror and hope throughout her work. The audience agreed readily and then went on to experience something else. I have to say that she is not only one of America's finest poets, she is also one of the finest readers of her poetry. Presenting her work as it calls and deserves to be presented. This allowed everyone to move freely through emotion after emotion, never missing a beat, or the white hot silences between the beats. From the bittersweet elegy for Allen, an homage to Allen Ginsberg, to the absolutely crushing The 8th and 13th, a poem inspired by Shostakovich's 8th and 13th symphonies that takes us into the darkest horrors of the Holocaust. The reactions of the audience were instant and audible. And how unsettling it was to sit there feeling all at once elated at the enormous power of her work and desperate with the deep grief that this poem insists upon. The ultimate stanza, the final 4 lines, are so chilling that if Ostriker had ended the evening with this poem, the audience might still be sitting there 11 years later in stunned silence. History, the poem pounds into us, repeats itself. This is just a single example of why Ostriker is called one of America's premier visionary poets. In short, her work does what poetry is meant to do. It makes us feel, even when we'd rather not. And in its silences, asks us what we should do about it. Most of my symphonies are tombstones, says Shostakovich. We make beauty of bitterness, says Ostriker. Yes. Please welcome Alicia Ostriker.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It's wonderful to be meeting again after all those years, as if the years between had never happened. But they have, and we have all experienced many strange things during those years. I'm going to begin with the two poems that Catherine was talking about. This one is called Elegy for Allen, which of course is Allen Ginsberg. Elegy for Allen. That was a break in the fiber of things sorrowful when Ginsberg died, because I still have students wanting to be Beats, and even some wanting to be Buddhists. Why not? But when that brilliant Jew poet took the train for the next world, American nirvana temporarily went with him. Not that he ever attained the tranquility supposedly sought. He was so nervous and somehow ailing. The neurotic, utopian, prophetic, fairy side of the guy never surrendered really to those Asian things. And too much ginseng makes a man feeble-like. Yes, B says, you would be there at a party and he'd say, excuse me, I have to follow that young man. You'd think, fine, but why are you obliged to announce it? Why not just do it? The greatest Jewish poet after Celan and Amichai, I cry, grieving, and B says, better not try to sell him as a rabbi. Though what else is he, for heaven's sake? Beads and bells and dreams of peace and all. Thank you. So that's a nice, cheerful poem about Allen Ginsberg, who was one of my poetic heroes and also, I think, a saint. If you can have Jewish saints, and I think you can. This next poem is the 8th and 13th that Catherine was talking about. It is dealing with the 8th and 13th symphonies of Shostakovich. The 8th about the siege of Leningrad in World War II, one of the great tragedies of war, of any war. The 13th symphony is in memory of Babi Yar, in which all the Jews of Kiev were rounded up. It's very timely now. All the Jews of Kiev were rounded up and marched to a ravine where they were all killed and buried. Part of what I admire so much about Shostakovich is that he was able, great composer and also great soul that he was, to write a symphony of deep and powerful grief for the suffering of his own people, the Russians, and also a symphony of great power memorializing the Jewish people who were still the enemy for most Russians. As part of this poem, I'll signal it like this. I'm quoting Shostakovich's memoir, which is as powerful as his music is. The 8th and 13th. The 8th of Shostakovich, music about the worst horror history offers. They played on public radio again last night. In solitude, I sipped my wine. I drank that somber symphony to the vile lees. The composer draws out the minor thirds. The brass tumbles overhead like virgin logs felled from their forest. washing down river and the rivermen at song. Like ravens who know when meat is in the offing, oboes form a ring, an avalanche of iron violins. At Leningrad, during the years of siege, between bombardment, hunger, and 3 sub-freezing winters, 3 million dead were born out of Christ's bloody side, like icy fetuses. For months, one could not bury them. The earth and they alike were adamant. The dead were stacked like sticks until May's mud, when, of course, there was pestilence. But the music continues. It has no other choice. Peer in as far as you like, it stays exactly as bleak as now. The composer opens his notebook. Tyrants like to present themselves as patrons of the arts. That's a well-known fact, but tyrants understand nothing about art. Why? Because tyranny is a perversion and a tyrant is a pervert. He is attracted by the chance to crush people, to mock them, stepping over corpses. And so, having satisfied his perverted desires, the man becomes a leader. And now the perversions continue because power has to be defended against madmen like yourself. For even if there are no such enemies, you have to invent them, because otherwise you can't flex your muscles completely. You can't oppress the people completely, making the blood spurt. And without that, what pleasure is there in power? The composer looks out the door of his dacha. It's April. He watches farm children at play. He forgets nothing. For the 13th, I slip his cassette into my car radio. They made Kiev's Jews undress after a march to the suburb, shot the hesitant quickly, battered some of the lame, and screamed at everyone. Valises were taken, would not be needed, packed so abruptly, tied with such frayed rope. Soldiers next killed a few more. The living ones, penises of the men like infant mice, breasts of the women bobbling as at athletics, were told to run through a copse to where, wet with saliva, the ravine opened her mouth. Marksmen shot the remainder, then there, by the tens of thousands, cleverly so that bodies toppled in without lugging. An officer strode upon the dead, shot what stirred. How it would feel, such uneasy footing, even wearing boots that caressed one's calves, leather and lamb's wool, the sole's thick rubber. Such the music's patient inquiry. What then is the essence of reality, of the good? The mind's fuse sputters, the heart aborts, it smells like wet ashes, the hands lift to cover their eyes. Only the music continues. We'll try for the first movement, a full chorus. The immediate reverse of Beethoven, an axe between the shoulder blades of Herr Wagner. People knew about Babi Yar before Yevtushenko's poem, but they were silent. And when they read the poem, the silence was broken. Art destroys silence. I know that many will not agree with me and will point out other, more noble aims of art. They'll talk about beauty, grace, and other high qualities. But you won't catch me with that bait. I'm like Sobakevich in Dead Souls. You can sugarcoat a toad, and I still won't put it in my mouth. Most of my symphonies are tombstones, said Shostakovich. Poets are Jews, said Cvetava. The words never again clashing against the words again and again. That music. Timely, is it not? We are there, we are still there. And now for something completely different. For many years, since around, I think it was 1985, when I realized that that as a woman, I found myself using the voice of Job's wife and asking what she will have to say to God when she gets up the courage, the chutzpah, to challenge God's justice the way her husband did. If you all know the book of Job, you know what I'm talking about. And if you have never read the book of Job, go home and read it right away, because it is all about human suffering and God, and a complaint about human suffering and a complaint about God. So I have a book called The Volcano Sequence, which contains a number of psalms or anti-psalms. This poem is called Psalm. I am not lyric anymore. I will not play the harp for your pleasure. I will not make a joyful noise to you. Neither will I lament, for I know you drink lamentation too, like wine. So I dully repeat, you hurt me, I hate you, I pull my eyes away from the hills. I will not kill for you. I will never love you again unless you ask me. And this is ultimately also addressed to God. And it's also about war. This is called During the Bombing of Kosovo. And it depends on the Hebrew word hevel, which some of you may know is the word that in Ecclesiastes is translated vanity, as in vanity, vanity, all is vanity, which is a great line, but it's not a quite accurate translation, because hevel more literally means mist or vapor. So hevel may be translated vanity or mist or vapor. The name of the first man whose brother was not his keeper, because Hevel is also Abel's first name, as in Cain and Abel. It is evening, it is morning, one day, like mist from 10,000 feet. Above the hills, bombs fall like vapor. The thin air is full of them. Roads crawl with tanks, soldiers like mist. Tens of thousands of refugees cross the border like vapor from morning to dusk. Unmanned families like mist. Women in slippers, children in bare feet like vapor, carrying blankets, suitcases of clothes like mist. Money ripped off by border guards. Not new under the sun, not new on throbbing blue lit screen, but the eye tires of hearing, but the eye tires of seeing, the ear of hearing. Oh, we still prepare our feast of liberty and memory. We remain your children. And you, Father of rain, what are you thinking? And that was written for Passover 1999. Because I believe, as more and more people are believing nowadays, that what we need for the future as Jews and as human beings is not simply a masculine God, a male God who is father, king, judge, warrior. We need his counterpart, whom we can find in the mystical tradition. She has many names. The feminine divine has many names in many cultures. In Judaism, in Jewish Kabbalah, she's called the Shekhinah, which means presence. And she is God's presence among us. There are many legends about her, many interpretations of her. And partly she lives in exile, partly she lives in Jerusalem. And this is an address to the Shekhinah as exile. Hidden one. When the temple fell, when Jerusalem arose and fell, and whenever we were persecuted and scattered by the nations, to follow us in pain and exile, you folded wings, patched coats, survived working, praying, giving birth, dragged mattresses, pans in peasant carts, swam across hard seas, sick and homesick, landed in the golden land. They called you greenhorn, you danced in cafes, you went in the factory, bargained, pushcart goods, iced shoes, Hester Street, put makeup on, threw away wig, and you learned new languages. Now you speak everything, lady. But part of you is earth, part of you is wounds, part of you is words, and part is smoke. Because whoever was burned over there, you were burned. You died forever with the sheep. Whoever survived, you speak in our tongues. Open your wings, instruct us, say what we are. Do not confuse us with the Sanhedrin of the loudspeakers who have no ear for your voice, but we who thirst for your new instructions, source of life, come into our thoughts, our mouth, speak to us, voice of the beloved, help us. Say what we are, say what we are to do. And I think this is something that is being said in many voices now, is being prayed in many voices, especially by the poets, of course, but not only by the poets. We seek the feminine divine. And here is another psalm. Like a skin on milk, I write to you. I hurl the letters of your name onto every page, one and many. I know you are reading over my shoulder. Look, each of us possesses a book of life. Each attempts to read what the other has scripted in these almost illegible letters tipped by crowns. What is the story we want to know? Would you turn off that faucet? I shout to my husband, but to you I say, never turn it off. And here is a final poem called Seasonal. When the full sun is on me this way, I itch and am satisfied. I take it in like a thirsty man drinking from his garden hose. I take it in like a smiling woman receiving a man. And then when the golden leaves fly past me, sometimes I jubilate. Like Abraham, I am here, for this I came. Like Isaac, I laugh, trembling. Well, at least I am alive. And like Jacob, I think, in the spirit world, they can never experience pleasure the way flesh can. The body making love, the body nursing a child, the body fighting, playing basketball, even when it sickens, nursing its lesions, it struggles to stay, it clings to the bars. Everything else is theology and folly. Thank you very much for joining me here. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Rabbi, wherever you are.
Thank you so much, Alicia. If we could take everyone off of mute right now, we're going to allow people to ask questions. For those of you on Zoom, maybe just raise your hand and I'll let Gunilla assist the people that are in the live audience, okay? Anyone live that wants to come up to the mic with a question?
Oh, all you shy people, all questions are good questions. Here we go. Gunilla, you are muted.
Just to unmute me.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Here's my Daniel. Without him, this would.
In the lion's den, I hope.
Thank you so much, Alicia Ostriker, for joining our humble reading series. My question was that there was a poem where you as the narrator of the poem, likened yourself to all the patriarchs from Abraham and down the line. Now, how did you cross that boundary?
Well, that's what metaphors and similes are for, to enable us do exactly that, to cross boundaries, to see what connections there are or may be that have not been seen before. What anything shares with anything else, what shows the oneness of the universe and of the world. And the reason that the prophets have endured so long is that we are not only being lectured to by them. Actually, it is often God is being lectured to by the prophets. And so are we, but we identify with what the prophets have to say, and that is why they endure. So, any other questions?
Anybody? Here comes a question.
Pardon? Yeah, oh, I know, yeah. Hi, thank you also for attending. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I was curious about your background in Judaism, like if you were raised with the usual, religious attendance, etc., or came to it later on your own, or maybe.
As you probably suspect, I was, here's the story in a nutshell. I was raised atheist socialist Jew, third generation atheist socialist Jew. My grandparents were all people who came from Eastern Europe, from the part of Europe that is much in the news now. And all of them thought that religion was the opiate of the people. They were very serious about that. But it so happened that although I had zero Jewish education as a child, I had experiences of what felt holy, what felt sacred. And I always loved the religious poets. I love John Donne, I love George Herbert, I love Gerard Manley Hopkins, and I especially loved my two biggest heroes who were religious outside any organized religion, and that is William Blake and Walt Whitman. I see some smiles here. And when I finally came to read the Bible, to actually read it, I bonded with it. I immediately felt, this is mine. This is.
Attention, with the owner of a great Volkswagen.
Sorry,
Hold
hold on.
F9855, call 23-1000, with the owner of a gray Volkswagen bearing JLF 9855, call 23-1000.
Okay, sorry about that. As hasn't been mentioned, I'm I'm in Mount Sinai Hospital where my husband is being treated, and I'm in the visitors lounge, and that's why you just heard that. At any rate, where was I? Yes, when I first read the Bible, I thought the men and women in these incredible, powerful stories, they are my mothers and fathers. I had no explanation for that. I just felt it. That was real to me. They are my mothers and fathers. And that God is my God, whether I like him or not. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. But the experience I mentioned earlier of responding to the book of Job from the point of view of Job's wife got me going on this path of wrestling with the Bible. And a lot of my wrestling is done in a book entitled The Nakedness of the Fathers, Biblical Visions and Revisions, which is Midrash.
Thank you very much. I especially appreciated what you said because I was not raised belonging to a temple or anything. And I definitely feel somewhat at home now that I am a member of a temple, but I do struggle. And people even raised with Judaism, I think some of them struggle. So to hear your honest, story.
Oh, that happens all the time. And my friend Karen Alkalay-Gut, who is a wonderful poet who lives in Tel Aviv, likes to say, for Jews, God is an option.
Thank you, especially Reconstructionist and Reform Jews. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for coming from the hospital. That's really something very special. Thank you for your Midrash class, which I enjoyed so much. If you ever have a chance to take her Midrash class, please do so. I'm still thinking about all the things I want to develop from that class.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much. And we wish you the best and your husband.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alicia. I'll be in
here.
touch. Okay.
And I'm sorry that I have to cut it short and go back and see how my husband is getting along.
No problem at all.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Big
Thank you
hug.
for inviting me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
A little special today, the way it ended up. And before we move on to our next featured reader, who is sitting here most patiently, it is my sad duty to tell all of you that our friend Paul Nemser, who read for us in December and last year, has died. He was a wonderful poet, a brilliant man, loving father and husband, a walking encyclopedia. I used to take a Zoom poetry class with a famous poet, and he was part of the group. And we always used to joke that, when you have Paul Nemser with us, we don't need Google. He knew everything. And he joined us, as I said, as a featured reader twice, even when he was visibly struggling, as he was in December. I remember saying, well, I hope you'll come back next year. But I think we all knew that was not going to happen. So in his honor, before we move on to our second featured reader, I would like to read, can you hear me? A poem that he wrote. One of my, there's so many favorite poems of his, but I can't explain why, but I really like this one. What I knew and what I had to say. Dad didn't believe in speaking before you had to speak. Mom talked like a rainstorm to keep stray planets away. I remember struggles with what I had to say. On the seaside prom, I'd run to a bench and let my grandparents catch up to me. Grandma and Grandpa with canes colliding in and out of breath, but they kept on talking, like their tongues were ponies ahead of the Cossacks, whose braided whips were gaining. It was fast in Yiddish. I didn't know how they kept on. And Mom and Dad a ways in front, I thought she was a seagull flapping and lighting, him cormorant grunting, sometimes nodding or staring out toward the insistence of the sea. The whole conversation out of earshot to me. Then a beach fog that blew in, close around my arms, clung soft as wet fleas and flickered flames. I thought the ocean had wrapped me in its tongues. Mouth of the Nekanicum, Tillamook head, the long winds that gusted words of white drumming waves. I didn't speak then. I didn't know the way. Here are my feet, like a monkey's on a man. Here, the mouth of a boy, learning where to stand, who just learned to say, here I am. As you know, in Torah, Hineni, here I am. Irene. Yes, begin.
Well, that was a very thrilling and moving and brilliant reading. And it's of our first featured reader. And thank you for your tribute to Paul Nemser. And it is now my pleasure. I'm very happy to introduce Kim Chin-Kay, who I've known at Buffalo State University now for some time. Kim grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. She has quite a remarkable and varied little bio. She served in the medical field in the Air Force and is often referred to as the queen of flash fiction. She's published hundreds of pieces of fiction and nonfiction in journals and magazines, including The Nation, Plowshares, Noon, Story Quarterly, Denver Quarterly, Fiction, Story, Notre Dame Review, Conjunction, and others. She is the recipient of 3 Pushcart Prizes and a Henfield Prize. She is senior editor of New World Writing, chief editor of Elm Leaves Journal, and co-director of SUNY Buffalo State's Writing Major. She's the author of 8 books, most recently her debut novel, Pipette. I'm thrilled to introduce Kim Chin-Kay. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. What a beautiful intro, and thank you for having me, and thank you for coming. And it's an honor to read with amongst the company that I've been reading with tonight. So, can everybody hear me okay?
No.
No? Okay. I gotta remember to project. So, I'm going to read selections from my short story collection, Snow Dog, which was published in 2021. Just a couple pieces from there. And then I'll read from Pipette, my novel that was published last year, and then a few new pieces that I've been working on. Catnip. I fold the paper, waiting at the diner. Sip my water, check my phone for the time. The guy is late, my date, who I met online. I look out the window, the moonlight clumps. The paper has a picture of a guy wanting for killing someone in the tropics. The guy in the paper is bald with big eyebrows and a pug nose. I fold the paper into a plane. The lipstick waitress brings me coffee, asks if I want more. Not yet, I say. I'm waiting for my boyfriend. I only talk to the guy I'm meeting once while discussing arrangements. We exchanged a few emails, mostly him telling me how he specializes in catnip, adding herbs that are supposed to cure ailments, hairballs, overactive bladders, fighting behaviors, things like that. He has 5 cats. He seems more attentive than most guys I date. In his picture, he's red-haired, bearded, skinny, cute. His name is Charlie. I wear an orange sweater, my hair in a bun. That's how I told him he could find me. I hear plates banging around in the kitchen. A man sits at the counter sipping something. A woman and a babbling baby sit in a booth across. Other than that, the place is pretty empty. It smells like bacon. A man enters, making the bell ring. He approaches me, asked if I am Stormy. I'm Stormy, I say. My name is really Elle. He sits, says his name is Charlie. He looks nothing like his online profile picture, pointy chin and small mouth, big dark brows. I say, are you sure? He says he is. His voice is high-pitched and he has a Jersey accent. The more I look at him, the more I notice he looks like the wanted man in the flyer. The flyers are everywhere. I unfold my airplane to sneak another look. He asks if I'm hungry. I tell him I'm starving. The waitress comes to ask what we want. She writes on her tablet, chewing her gum. I get tomato soup and he orders tuna. When the waitress leaves, I ask Charlie if he's been anywhere warm recently. He says no. He says he's from Jersey. He has a nice smile. His nose isn't as pugged as the man in his profile. He looks kind of cat-like. His ears pointy, his tongue long. He licks his lips a lot. He makes a sound like a purr. Another man enters, then another. They look alike, like Charlie. They sit at the counter, fill the booths. They all wear vests and Wranglers. Stray animal hairs stick to their backs and arms and middles. I ask Charlie who he is. He narrows his eyes. He sticks his tongue out. I laugh at him and I hiss. Thank you.
Now we're seeing. Yeah.
Okay, can you, am I in the focus now? No. Technology is difficult.
Change of plan.
Yeah. That's a lot of me.
Okay.
Okay. Our dog ran down the highway. He came in from work carrying firewood. He smelled like a string cheese I put in his lunches. I packed a lunch for him every single day. After cooking him oatmeal for breakfast, I prepared dinner too. I also had a career. It was a super long drive, which wasn't exactly a picnic. He put down the wood and bit my neck. He grabbed my boob and felt it. The record player I just unpacked was broken and behind us. What are you doing? I said. Molesting you, he said. Oh no, I said, you're not. All right, I'm going to move on to pipette. This is a novel. Actually, when I first wrote this, I started writing this during COVID, or before COVID, actually, and then COVID hit. So I was writing a piece a day, and there were flash fictions, and it was originally going to be published as a collection of fiction. But as I was revising and working with my editor, I said, this reads more like a novel. So I just worked on some of the characters and some of the cohesiveness, and there, here and behold, we have a novel in flashes. So my first novel that's been published. So working on a couple more, but so these are very short chapters and they read mostly like fictions, but they're all connected. I pet as many as I can. It's not like my dogs are not okay, but it's not like having children. My son is an adult now with dogs and a wife. I was staying at the Y near Central Park and spent a good deal of my time with men. We brushed our teeth in the same sink. We bathed using the same water. We sometimes relieved ourselves without shutting the doors. I also petted as many dogs on leashes as I could. All the dogs seemed very interested in me. I drive my car an hour after the train ride. When I get to the door, the dogs greet me, helicoptering around. I guess I'm just kind of a doggy lady. Getting out of it. They say the best way to get through a captive situation is to build your captive's ego. You say things and do things, whatever it takes to make your captive feel in control. Your hope is to get out safely. I'm still a little sassy. Do our ancestors speak to us? I feel the vibrations of them humming on my eyelid, taste them on my tongue. My maternal grandfather, who served in the Second World War, used to single me out from the other grandkids, thank me for my service. If he were still alive, would he be proud of my son who serves in the army? My grandmother used to tell my grandpa that it wasn't fair to the other grandkids that he spoke so highly of me, of my service during war. Do you know what it means to be at war? Maybe I'm still a little sassy. She used to call, told me to be careful, but I know that's just projection. Of course she was worried. My grandfather died blind, but the last time I saw him in assisted living, he knew who I was as soon as I walked into the room. Buzz cut. I wake from another dream of being lost. I leave my bike somewhere but can't find it. The landscape has turned itself around. Everyone else seems to know where they are, watching a game, keeping score, and I'm on my own, sweating up a hill, daffodils waving. It's a rainy morning. I open the curtains. The dogs beg at my feet. It's past 9 a.m. I go to the front porch, collect the Sunday paper. Throughout the day, the dream stays with me. It brings on memories of other dreams, not being able to find my car, missing flights, losing my phone, losing my wallet, losing my connections. I look into the mirror, pluck my brows. I study my jawline. I run my hands over my head. Everything is smooth now. The man who helped me. My apartment's still so hot. I finally shut the windows. It's hotter to keep them open, which lets in the heat and the noise of motorbikes blaring off the interstate, and the bus, loud even in its rule following, letting people off and on and off. I use Sky Miles to get myself and the dogs a hotel with AC. We're on the 12th floor. I look down into the city and out to the Great Lake, where I ride along it on the bike path. I look out to the break wall. The dogs tilt their heads. I tell them, I could have found a better hotel, but not every hotel likes you. On the bed, I sprawl up the best I can. I turn up the AC. I go to Walgreens for the third time since my bike crash. Buy more dressings. I'm getting to know which kinds work better for the road rash on my knuckles, my fingers, my elbow, knee, the raw skin on my shoulder. I take off my old dressings. The bruise in my hip has turned a lighter purple. I run the shower and feel the water with my fingers, the sting. I step in, adjust the temp. I address my wounds. It's my goal to find the man who helped me. the tallest one on Southwood. A team comes out with tractors and risers. A man high up with the chainsaw cuts off a branch of red and orange and yellow. It's sad to see the sugar maple fall. I stand across the street at some points taking pictures. I feel sorry for the tree. It was the tallest one on Southwood. My massage therapist, Sal, who took some of the tree's wood, shows me patterns of its insides. The core of it is dead. There's some growth around it from when the previous owner tried to save it. It's an interesting pattern. It'll make a decent table. Now all that's left of the tree's place is a big wide hole. I'll have to fill it probably come spring. I'll plant another tree, but the arborist advises me to plant at least a few feet from it. Maybe a rose of Sharon, something ornamental. Still, with that tree gone, the raking is exhausting. It left a lot of leaves, and the backyard is leaf covered. There's an oak and countless other small ones. A man comes by and says he grew up a few houses down. He talks about the tree. The original owners of my home were horticulturalists. They were like grandparents to him. He shares old pictures, a gardener's dream with rocks and beds in all kinds of colors and patterns. Birds dance and sing. Squirrels hop from branch to branch, their tails flopping. They sit with their mouths and front paws working on the acorns. I rake, and rake. I get new eyeglasses and I'm not sure the prescription is right because the leaves make me dizzy. I put the leaves on a tarp. I fold and lift it and pull it to the curb. I leave the arrangement in a rectangle. How do you roll? Things I love about my new home. Having a full spread on the bed if I want. Bright colors, lighting candles. The whir of transit buses passing. Keeping my life clean. Being organized, being able just to find things. Eating meals at the table. Not always having the TV on. Being close to Wegmans. Cooking for myself. Doing my own laundry. Enjoying my art, my plants, my dogs. Long soaks in the bathtub, taking in my salts, lavender oils, lights down with a lit candle and low music. Practicing self-care. Knowing where my clothes are. Being able to exercise whenever and in whatever ways I want. Drinking wine with dinner. My nice big kitchen. Cooking vegan, cooking non-vegan, or not cooking at all. Making my own plate. Not having to hear bad things about liberals. Being liberal. Writing at my desk. Reading, being quiet, feeling cleansed. Asking my dogs, how do you roll? Walks to my favorite park where I can fly a kite if I want. Being in awe of the enormous sky I can see clearly out my window. The pandemonium it makes when a storm breaks. Making a lime into a kickball. Acting like a whimbrel or a warbler or a goose. Being silly with myself. Playing imaginary golf while playing an imaginary trumpet, eating imaginary or real blueberry sherbet in my fluffy velvet robe. Oh, how scrumptious. My place smells so delicious. Can you study my serology? Can you tell that I'm free now? Okay, I'll read one more piece. This is a newer one. Been on sabbatical, which is.
Step back, let's speak up.
Okay, is it muffled? Yeah. Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I've been on sabbatical. So every day I write how many days of sabbatical I'm on. So my days are running out. So this I wrote on my 40th day of sabbatical. And because it was my 40th day of sabbatical, I titled it My 40th Day of Sabbatical. Is that better? Can you hear me better now? Yes, okay. On my 40th day of sabbatical, my dog kills a squirrel. I see her out in the backyard with a thing in her mouth. It isn't her first kill. She's a sweet dog, the sweetest I've known. She's a dog. I find the shovel from the back garage, try to find the thing. It's not in the dog's mouth anymore. She's happy. She's almost always happy. Her motives with squirrels are not evil. I think she just thinks they're better toys than the dozens I bring her home. Do I feel sorry for the squirrels? I'm vegan. I don't eat meat. Squirrels are a nuisance and eat the vegetables I plant in my garden. I find the dead thing near the fence next to my neighbors where my sweet dog likes to say hello to the neighbors. I imagine my sweet dog thinks this is a gift. I dispose of the gift and text my neighbors. They hate squirrels. I think maybe my puppy knows that. After that, my puppy's full of zoomies, proud. The other neighbor's dog has gotten loose and my puppy sees that. She, for the first time, finds a way to climb over the fence and runs to find the neighbor dog. They're such silly partners. I say to the neighbor, want to bring your dog over to play in my yard? I have 2 other dogs, older, small. Soon all 4 dogs are in my yard. The neighbor's kids want to come over too, and the other neighbor's kids who are at their house too. Soon all the neighborhood kids are in my yard along with all the neighborhood dogs. They all wear glow-in-the-dark shirts, even though it's light out. Some wear antennae. Some chew bones. They move into my house. The kids curl in the dog beds and pretend to be dogs while all the dogs just keep being dogs. Thank you. Am I staying up here for questions or? Okay.
Question on Zoom. I don't know if they can you repeat that?
Oh, yeah, if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them. You want to close it out? I'm fine with that too.
You said that you're doing a piece a day, every day of your sabbatical. Are you, I think you said before you're doing it with a group, an online group as well. Do you guys get together and talk about your stories or do you just kind of read them? How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's more of an open group. It's, and there are rules, or I'd say guidelines, but I've been hosting, it's an online writing group that I've been hosting since 2002. So over 20 years and, you know, so people from all over the world, but it's a very, very close, because we have our kind of our own dynamic, I would say. So people have come in and out, and basically what I do is I post 5 prompt words every day and a prompt sentence. So there's no requirement, like I can't say you have to come and read every day, or you have to compost every day, but there are our regulars. But I have, I would say since I've been on sabbatical, more, I wasn't writing every day because I was doing edits for this and, you know, doing promotional stuff, but starting November 1st, this book came out October 31st. So starting November 1st, I committed to writing one new piece a day. And there are other members in my writing group who said, yeah, we'll do it too. So there are 4 of us now who are still going in there, writing a piece every day and responding to each other's work every day. So it's, and you know, when you write every day, there's a lot of stuff you got to throw out, but you know, you also have some things that you save and they turn into stories, but it's great to have a group and have a network like that when you know, and being together so long, kind of trust each other. And some of the members in my group, I did go to graduate school with, and I have met all of them in person. So, you know, it's even the ones who live, one of the group members lives in Australia, one is in South Africa, one is in Brazil. So we actually presented at the AWP conference probably 15 years ago. So we all got to meet each other, and it's really kind of dynamic. And so it really is a great group. It's a great resource, and sort of it keeps me accountable too, because I'm like, I got to post my prompt words, I got to write my piece, and if it's 11 o'clock at night and I haven't written my piece yet, I'm like, I'm staying up until I get that piece done. So yeah, Thank you for the question. Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
Oh.
The Zoom people can't hear us, right?
I asked previously Alicia Ostriker about metaphor. And hearing you read, I was wondering if some of the material could be read as metaphor in your stories. What do you think? Oh, here's water,
Oh,
by the
thank
way.
you. Oh, great question. I like to a lot of times take things in a direction they might not normally go, like with the cat thing, the cat hair, and because life is weird like that. And it's just thinking outside of the box, and I think in that way it's a metaphor. Also, I do use dreams a lot. I think dreams are weird, but they also inform us. And from my opinion, they inform us about things in our lives. There's a spiritual realm to it. I do hypnotherapy, and I feel like it gives me access to the spiritual world, or the people in my life who are no longer with me. So in some ways that's metaphorical, and I use those as metaphors for my work to bring about looking at the world in different ways or in bigger ways. And just, yeah, everyday things, like, I mean, life is a metaphor. So yeah, I think that's, plus I think if I sometimes I have writing flash fiction is a challenge when it comes to generating plot. So it's not the traditional, like, I can't say calculated plot, but I think you have to be a little bit more creative and bring odd things in and use language and change things around in the stories. And that might help me as an author, but as a writer, but also my readers see things in a way they might not have seen it if it's just, not as creative. So, yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay, thank you.
I don't want to block it out. I wanted to ask you a very practical question, which is, what kinds of dogs do you have now? And how early did you start, having dogs or really bonding with dogs? I'm a pet sitter, so I'm
Okay.
always been a dog fanatic.
Thank you. Well, I grew up on a farm, so I always loved animals. I would go out and talk to them. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Speak up.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up on a dairy farm. So I grew up, with cows and pets, or dogs and cats and goats. And I was, there's a lot of room to roam. And I was always friends with them, talking to them and stuff. So just kind of weird, but you live on a farm, then I couldn't have many friends over. And if I did, then, I made friends with them, so, so I did not, I had a few pets after I got married, and, then I got divorced. So then I got moved overseas. So my ex-husband ended up, with our Lhasa. So, and then I was a single mom for many years. And then when I moved to Buffalo, and my son was in college, I got a dog. I adopted a dog. So she was a Chihuahua mix, but she died 7 years ago. And then a few weeks later, I said, I need another one. So I adopted another dog from the same breeder, and he's a Japanese Chin, little. And he didn't bark at all. He didn't play with toys. I thought he needs a friend. So I went back to the rescue, and he got a brother, Beethoven, who's a mix of a bunch of stuff, about 30 pounds. And then So they show up in my stories a lot, obviously, because I live alone with my dogs. And then August of 2021, I went to Geneva, New York to do a triathlon, and I stayed at Airbnb. My Airbnb host had a litter of puppies. So they said, "You want to see them?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you have any left?" They said, "We have one left." And I said, "Okay." So she wasn't ready to come home yet, so I had to wait a while, but she's my puppy now. She's almost 2, but she's a golden doodle, and she's I actually dedicated this book to her. I pet her, and she's the source of the squirrel story. And she'll be 2 in June. So I named her Geneva because I did the triathlon in Geneva. So that's and I love dogs. I love pets. They're just love you no matter what. So. And this book is called Snow Dog. This was published. So there's just a lot of dogs showing.
Yeah. Hello? Can I ask you something? Hello?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were influenced by anybody, because something about your the simple declaratives and the sentence stops and the cadences remind me a little bit of Hemingway, the way it opens a kind of these pristine expanses in in the wake of the words,
Thank you. That's a great question. I have been called a minimalist before many times. I studied at the University of Southern Mississippi with Fred Barthelme and Mary Robeson and Stephen Barthelme, and they studied with John Barth at Johns Hopkins, and very minimalist work and influences. So as I was writing, as I was studying with them, I would write longer pieces, and Rick Barthelme, who was where the closest with, he was like, "You got to cut this, do nothing for the piece." And so I think it just by nature, that's how I write now. I've also published with Noon Magazine, been publishing there since 2002. And Diane Williams is the editor there, and I work closely with her. She's also in the same school, I would say, as the minimalist. So sort of the same influences. So that's sort of where the flash fiction genre was kind of embedded in me. There was my first year at Southern Miss, I was in a class with Mary Robeson, and one day for workshop, there was nobody scheduled to present. So she said, "Oh, everybody just bring in the shortest piece under 5 pages." So I did, and that was really well received and actually ended up getting published in Noon. So I just found that not only did I love the genre, but I had some success with it. And a lot of journals are more, it costs less to publish a 3-page story than it does a 30-page story. And also with, with a lot of journals going online now, reading on the screen, it's easier on the eyes to read a really short piece than it is to read a short story. So kind of the genre has sort of exploded, I would say. 1994, the genre first got its name in an anthology called Flash Fiction, and the editors, James Thomas and Denise Thomas and Tom Kazuka, just named Flash Fiction as any fiction piece that's under 750 words. So that's where it got its name, and that's the influence. Flash fiction, and there's all sorts of dialogue going on between what's flash fiction and what's prose poetry, and so it's sort of really fascinating to me. So.
You are also widely recognized for your athleticism, and you are very. I'm thinking about the muscularity of writing this kind of prose, and how one informs the other. And the discipline and yeah.
Oh. Yeah, Irene was asking about, like, I'm an athlete, I do triathlons, so she was asking about the parallels between writing and exercise and the discipline. That pretty much sums up the question, right? Yeah. I've been an athlete longer than I've been a writer. Well, I mean, I've been writing since I was a kid, but I think growing up on a farm, I was always very physical. You know, I had to bale hay, I had to pick stones. I was always in a sport. I was in volleyball, basketball, softball, track, cheerleading, and cross country. And being in the Air Force, yeah, I had to be very fit. So it's just always been a part of my life, and it's part of, you know, sort of ingrained in me. And I love exercise. I love being physical. I think for me it's spiritual in a way, and the discipline of, you know, work with a trainer, you know, I do triathlons. So I exercise every day, I write every day. It's sort of like, I had a similar question at one of my last readings, and, you know, I think exercising your body physically and is parallel to exercising your mind when you're as a writer. You know, if you write every day, you're exercising the brain muscles, and, you know, for me, they go hand in hand, you know. And when I was in the Air Force, I used to run on my lunch breaks, and I hadn't taken any writing classes in college yet. But after a run, like I worked in the lab that was parasitology, so everything was slow. But I'd get my pencil and paper, and I'd write down like just things that inspired me. And I had a dream then that I wanted to write for Runner's World. I had no idea I was going to be a writer because I hadn't gone back to college, taking writing classes. But it just seems, it was my dream then just to write, to be able to write about running, and I can do it now. So I see that as a real gift. So thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And for those of us who have visited Hemingway's place outside of Havana, he buried all his dogs. Were there 6 of them? By the pool. So yeah, he loved his doggies too. So I want to thank everybody, of course. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Alicia. She's in the middle of a very difficult situation. So I'm sorry she had to leave, but we all understand, and we have all been there, or we will be there. But I really appreciate everybody's support for the Buffalo Corner. I want to thank Daniel, Irene, David, our readers, everybody who came here tonight. Now we have 3 readings left, right? We have April, May, and June. And in April, we have the open community reading for Poetry Month. Oh, please, can you stop waving your finger at me? Anyways, it's April is National Poetry Month. Can you hear me now? Yeah. It's National Poetry Month in America in April. And so as of the last 5 years, Buffalo Corner series is running a community open read for National Poetry Month. I invite all of you who are here or on Zoom, who have visited us or read for us, to bring 1 or 2 short. I mean, don't make it, don't make it Homer. Don't bring the Odyssey. But, a reasonably 1 or 2 reasonably short poems, either by yourself or a poet you really admire, and join us here, and we'll just have a a poetry reading of all kinds of different things. So there will be no featured readers in April. We are all featured readers together. In May, it's in America, National Mystery Month. And so for, again, 5 years, our Edgar Award-winning mystery writer, Gary L. Ross, has come every May to do a mystery night. And it's a mystery which readers he's bringing this year, because he hasn't told me yet. But he has always, he will read, and then he brings 3, 4, 5 people, whoever can come.
Give the lady a bottle of water.
Thank you. So that's in May. And then in June, we have 2 readers. One is Sherry Robbins from Just Buffalo, right? Or no? Well, she has worked, I have only heard her read through Just Buffalo, I guess. So I am very much looking forward to that. And then we have Bert Fryman, who has written a very interesting, very big book on the history. I don't know if it's of his family, but it's about Jewish people in the, what do you call it in Russia? The Pale. Yeah, Pale. Well, we call it in Sweden Pale. But anyways, so it goes through generations, and I've read it. I was really impressed with it. And Irene actually edited it, which is probably one reason why it's so readable. And so he will come and read part of his novels in June. Then we take July and August off and start again. So if anybody is interested in coming to the Buffalo Corner, want to read, contact me, contact Irene, and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much. Oh, and Julia, thank you for
You're welcome.
the shift.
You're welcome. I just wonder when I should end the recording and end the meeting.
You can end it, I think, right now.
Okay, thanks everybody for being here.
Love you. Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for calling me.
Thanks for doing this.
You're welcome. Okay, bye-bye.
Oh, wait.
Oh, I didn't end it.
You can stop. You're just looking. There's a whole bunch of chats here.
Oh, yes. Does the recording capture the chat? I know at UB they can capture that. I don't know how to, oh, wait. Oh, okay. I almost lost it for a minute.
Yeah, it's nothing too exciting. Okay, never mind.
Is that okay? Do you need that?
We can say goodbye.
Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.